The Golden Gate gleamed under the afternoon sun like it was mocking everyone who couldn't afford to touch it. Adaeze stood there, her worn wrapper clinging to her thin frame, her fingers gripping the cold metal bars so tight her knuckles had turned pale. Inside the compound, marble fountains splashed water that probably cost more than her entire year of struggling. The security man, a pot-bellied fellow in a crisp uniform, kept pushing her back. "Madam, I said you cannot enter. This is not a place for beggars." "I am not a beggar." Adaeze's voice cracked, but she steadied herself. "I told you, I know the owner of this house. Tell Obi that Adaeze is here. Tell him." The security man laughed, a deep mocking sound that made her stomach twist. "You know Oga Obi, you." He looked her up and down, taking in her faded clothes, her dusty slippers, the desperation written across her face. "Madam, people like you come here every day claiming to know Oga. Move before I call the police." Before Adaeze could respond, the front door of the mansion swung open. A tall and elegant woman stepped out, wearing a flowing white dress that probably cost enough to feed Umueze village for a month. Her skin glowed like she bathed in honey and milk. This was Chidera, though Adaeze didn't know it yet. Behind Chidera, moving slowly like a man walking to his own execution, was Obi. Adaeze's heart stopped. After 7 years, there he was, taller now, fuller in the face, wearing a designer shirt that screamed money. His eyes met hers through the gate, and for one brief second she saw something flicker there. Recognition? Fear? Guilt? But then his face went blank, smooth as stone. "Obi!" Adaeze called out, her voice breaking with relief and joy. "Obi, it's me! It's Adaeze, from Umueze. Don't you remember?" Chidera turned to Obi, her perfectly shaped eyebrows raised in question. "Darling, do you know this woman?" The silence that followed felt like a knife twisting in Adaeze's chest. Obi looked at her, looked right through her, as if she were invisible, as if the years they'd spent together were nothing but smoke. "No," he said, his voice flat and cold. "I've never seen her before in my life." The world tilted. Adaeze grabbed the gate tighter to keep from falling. "What? Obi, what are you seeing? It's me, Adaeze. We grew up together. I helped you. Have you forgotten everything?" Chidera's face hardened. She stepped forward, her high heels clicking against the marble like little gunshots. "Security! Why is this mad woman still at my gate? Remove her now!" "I am not mad," Adaeze screamed, and the sound echoed through the quiet street, making neighbors peer through their own golden gates. "Obi, tell her who I am. Tell her what I did for you." Obi's jaw clenched. He moved closer to Chidera, putting his arm around her waist like he needed protection from Adaeze's words. "I don't know what you're talking about. I've never been to any village called Umueze. You have the wrong person." Lies. Sweet Jesus, he was lying. Adaeze felt something crack inside her chest, something that had been holding her together for 7 long years of waiting, hoping, believing. The security man grabbed her arm, but she shook him off, pressing her face against the gate. "I promised you," she shouted, tears streaming down her face now. "I sold my mother's land for you. That land was all I had, and I gave it to you because you said you'd make something of yourself in return for me. And now you stand there and lie?" Chidera's face twisted with disgust. "Oh, so this is one of those village schemes. You people find a successful man and claim he owes you something. Darling, let's go inside. Security, if she's still here, in 2 minutes call the police." Obi turned away. He actually turned his back on her and started walking toward the house. Adaeze's scream was primal, raw, the sound of a heart shattering into a million pieces. "I gave up everything for you, everything!" But the door closed. The golden door of the golden house shut with a soft, final click, and Adaeze was left standing there, shaking, her legs barely holding her up.
The security man dragged her away from the gate, muttering about crazy women and village witches. She stumbled down the street, her vision blurred with tears, not seeing the luxury cars or the mansions or the perfectly trimmed hedges. How could he do this? How could he look at her and see nothing? But maybe you're wondering how they got here. How does a friendship turn into this kind of betrayal? What happened between that mango tree promise and this golden gate denial? Because trust me, when I tell you where this story started, you'll understand why Adaeze's pain cut so deep, and you'll wonder if you would have done what she did, given the same choice. Let me take you back to where it all began, back to Umueze village, where the dust was red and the dreams were bigger than the mud huts could contain.
Umueze village was the kind of place where everybody knew everybody's business before you even knew it yourself. The kind of place where the smell of firewood smoke mixed with the sweetness of ripe mangoes in the morning air, where children ran barefoot through red dust paths, and women balanced baskets of cassava on their heads while discussing whose daughter was getting married or whose son had disgraced the family. This was home for Adaeze and Obi, two children who had nothing but each other and dreams too big for their small world. Adaeze lived with her mother in a small mud house at the edge of the village. Her father had died when she was 5, leaving them with only a small plot of land that grew yams and cassava. It wasn't much, but her mother, Mama Adaeze, worked that land like her life depended on it, because it did. Every morning before the cock crowed, Adaeze would wake to find her mother already in the fields, her wrapper tied tight around her waist, her hands deep in the soil. That woman worked herself to the bone to make sure Adaeze had food in her belly and could attend the village school. Obi's story was different, but somehow the same. He lived with his grandmother in an even smaller hut near the village stream. His parents had abandoned him when he was a baby, run off to the city chasing their own dreams, and never looked back. His grandmother was old, her back bent like a question mark, surviving on the kindness of neighbors and whatever small jobs Obi could do. He fetched water for people, helped in their farms, ran errands for a few naira here and there. But Obi had something special in his eyes, a fire that said he wouldn't stay in Umueze forever. The two of them became friends the way lonely children do, drawn together by their circumstances. They would sit under the big mango tree in the village square after school, sharing one wrap of akara that Adaeze's mother had given her, breaking it perfectly in half because that's what friends did. They talked about everything, about how one day they would leave the village and become something great. Obi wanted to be a businessman, wear fine clothes, drive a big car. Adaeze wanted to be a teacher, help children learn so they wouldn't end up struggling like their parents. "When I make it," Obi would say, his young voice full of certainty, "I will build you a fine school, the biggest school in Umueze, and you will be the headmistress." Adaeze would laugh, covering her mouth with her hand the way her mother taught her. "And when I become a teacher, I will make sure your children get the best education free of charge." They made promises under that mango tree. Children's promises, sweet and innocent, not knowing that life had a way of testing every word spoken in hope. When Adaeze was 16, her mother fell sick. It started with a small cough, then became something worse, something that made her mother's body waste away like a candle burning too fast. The village doctor said she needed to go to the hospital in the city, that she needed medicine they didn't have in Umueze. But medicine cost money, and money was something they didn't have. Adaeze watched her mother grow weaker every day, watched the light fade from her eyes, and there was nothing she could do. Nothing. Her mother died on a rainy Tuesday, and Adaeze felt like the rain was crying for her because she had no tears left. The village buried Mama Adaeze in a simple grave near the mango tree, and Adaeze became an orphan at 16, with nothing but that small plot of land her parents had left behind. Obi was there through it all. He held her hand at the burial, brought her food when she forgot to eat, sat with her in silence when words were too heavy to speak. Their bond grew stronger, deeper, moving from friendship into something that felt like family. No, stronger than family, because family could abandon you, but Obi never did.
One year after her mother's death, Obi came to her with news. He'd heard about an opportunity in Lagos, a chance to learn a trade, to apprentice with a successful businessman who was looking for sharp young men. But it required money for transportation, for accommodation, for feeding until he started earning. Money they didn't have. "This is my chance, Ada," he said, using the nickname only he called her. "If I go to Lagos, if I learn this business, I can make something of myself. I can come back and lift us both out of this poverty. I can make all our dreams come true." Adaeze looked at him, at the fire in his eyes, the desperation mixed with hope. She knew what she had to do even before the thought fully formed in her mind. "How much do you need?" she asked quietly. The amount he mentioned made her heart sink. It was more than she could ever gather from selling cassava or doing odd jobs. There was only one way to get that kind of money quickly: her mother's land, the only inheritance she had, the only security, the only thing standing between her and complete destitution. That night, Adaeze couldn't sleep. She lay on her mat staring at the ceiling, listening to the crickets sing outside. She thought about her mother's hands in that soil, the years of labor, the love poured into every yam planted. But she also thought about Obi's dreams, about their promises under the mango tree, and about how sometimes you had to sacrifice for the people you loved.
The morning Adaeze went to see Chief Okafor about selling the land, the sun was just breaking through the clouds, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. She walked slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last, her wrapper dragging slightly in the dust. Chief Okafor was the wealthiest man in Umueze, owning vast stretches of farmland and several houses. He'd been eyeing her mother's plot for years, wanting to expand his cassava plantation. Now he would finally get his wish. "Adaeze, my daughter," Chief Okafor said when she entered his compound, surprise evident on his wrinkled face. "What brings you here so early?" She swallowed the lump in her throat. "Chief, I want to sell my mother's land, the one near the stream." His eyes widened, then quickly narrowed with interest. They both knew what that land was worth, knew it was prime soil, well-positioned, valuable. He offered her a price that was far less than its worth, but Adaeze was desperate, and he knew it. She negotiated weakly, managed to get a little more, but in the end she accepted. What choice did she have? When she held the kobo in her hands, the bundle of naira notes that represented her entire inheritance, her mother's life's work, tears streamed down her face. Chief Okafor looked away, perhaps feeling a twinge of guilt, perhaps not. Money had a way of making people comfortable with other people's pain. Adaeze went straight to Obi's grandmother's hut. Obi was outside, washing clothes in a metal bucket, his hands red from the harsh soap. When he saw her face, he dropped the wrapper he was scrubbing. "Ada, what happened? Why are you crying?" She handed him the money, all of it, every single naira. "Take it," she whispered. "Go to Lagos. Make something of yourself. Make our dreams come true." Obi stared at the money, then at her, his eyes wide with shock. "Ada, where did you get this? This is too much. I can't." "I sold the land," she said simply. "My mother's land. It's done. The money is yours." "No." Obi shook his head violently, trying to push the money back into her hands. "No, Ada, I can't take this. That land is all you have. What will you do? Where will you live? How will you survive?" "I'll manage," she said, forcing strength into her voice that she didn't feel. "I'll find work. I'll do something. But you, Obi, you have a chance to escape this place. One of us needs to make it out, and it should be you. You're smarter. You're ambitious. You have that fire. Take this money and go. Just promise me one thing." "Anything," he said, his voice breaking. "Ada, anything. Promise me you won't forget where you came from. Promise me when you make it, you'll come back for me. Not because you owe me, but because we're family, because we made promises under that mango tree." Obi pulled her into a tight hug, and she felt his tears wet against her neck. "I promise, Ada. I swear on everything I hold sacred. When I make it in Lagos, I will come back for you. I will build you that school. I will give you a life better than anything Umueze can offer. You won't regret this sacrifice. I promise you." She believed him. God help her. She believed every word. 2 weeks later, Obi left for Lagos on an early morning bus. The entire village came out to see him off, as they always did when one of their own headed to the city. His grandmother cried, holding on to his shirt like she might never see him again. Adaeze stood a little apart from the crowd, watching as Obi boarded the bus with a small bag containing everything he owned. Before the bus pulled away, he looked at her through the window, placed his hand over his heart, and mouthed, "I promise." The bus disappeared down the dusty road, leaving behind a cloud of red dust that slowly settled back to earth. That was 7 years ago. In those 7 years, Adaeze's life became a series of struggles that would break most people. Without her land, she had to rent a tiny room in Mama Ngozi's compound, working as a housemaid for various families in the village to pay for her food and shelter. She washed clothes until her hands cracked and bled. She fetched water from the stream so many times her shoulders developed permanent aches. She worked in people's farms under the scorching sun, her back bent like her mother's used to be, her youth slipping away one grueling day at a time. But she didn't complain, because Obi sent letters. For the first 2 years, letters came regularly, filled with stories about Lagos, about his apprenticeship, about how hard he was working. He sent small amounts of money when he could, never much, but enough to show he was thinking of her. Adaeze kept every letter in a small box under her mat, reading them over and over when the loneliness became too heavy. Then the letters started coming less frequently. Once a month became once every 3 months. The money stopped coming. His stories changed, too, became vaguer, less personal. He stopped asking about Umueze, stopped asking about her life. But Adaeze told herself he was just busy, that success demanded time and focus. She made excuses for him, because the alternative, that he might be forgetting her, was too painful to consider. By year 5, the letters stopped completely. Adaeze told herself it was the postal system, unreliable as always. She told herself his addresses kept changing as he moved up in the world. She made herself 1,000 lies to keep the hope alive, because hope was all she had left. In year 7, Adaeze's situation became desperate. Mama Ngozi died, and her son wanted to sell the compound, which meant Adaeze would lose even her small rented room. The families she worked for in the village started complaining that she was getting too old, too slow, that they needed younger girls who could work faster. At 23 years old, Adaeze felt ancient, used up, invisible. The girls her age were married with children, had husbands to provide for them. She had nothing but a box of old letters and fading hope. That's when Sister Bukala came to Umueze for Christmas. Sister Bukala had left the village 15 years ago and now ran a housemaid agency in Lagos, connecting village girls with wealthy families who needed domestic help. She was sitting under the same mango tree where Adaeze and Obi used to make promises, wearing city clothes and smelling of expensive perfume when Adaeze approached her. "Sister Bukala, I want to come to Lagos. I can work hard. I need a job, any job." Sister Bukala looked at her over with shrewd eyes. "You're older than the girls I usually take, but you look strong. Can you cook, clean, follow instructions without talking back?" "Yes, ma'am, I can do everything." "Good. I have a client, a very wealthy family in Lakey. The madame is pregnant and needs extra help around the house. The pay is good, but the work is hard, and they don't tolerate nonsense. Can you handle that?" "I can handle anything." "Nonsense?" 2 weeks later, Adaeze found herself in Lagos, squeezed into a bus that smelled of sweat and dried fish, her entire life packed into one small bag. When Sister Bukala brought her to the house in Lakey, her breath caught in her throat. She'd never seen anything like it. The golden gate, the massive compound, the mansion that looked like something from a television screen. Fountains, flowers, marble everywhere.
This was wealth beyond her wildest imagination.
Sister Bukola handed her over to the head housemaid, a stern-faced woman named Auntie Patience, who showed her to the servants' quarters and rattled off a list of rules and duties. Adaeze barely heard any of it. She was too busy thinking that somewhere in Lagos, Obi was living his dream. Maybe one day she'd find him, surprise him, and they'd laugh about how far they'd both come from Umueze. She didn't know that fate had already found him for her. It was her third day in the house. Adaeze was in the kitchen, learning where everything was kept, when she heard Auntie Patience say, "Oga and Madame are back from their trip. Make sure everywhere is spotless. Madame doesn't like dust." Adaeze was mopping the hallway when she heard the front door open. She kept her head down, focusing on her work the way Auntie Patience had instructed. Never look the owners in the eye unless they speak to you first. Stay invisible. Do your work and disappear. "Darling, I'm exhausted," a woman's voice said, high and refined. "That conference was absolutely draining. I need a massage and some wine." "Anything for you, my love," a man's voice responded. That voice, something about that voice made Adaeze's hands freeze on the mop. She looked up slowly, and her entire world stopped spinning. Standing in the grand entrance, wearing an expensive suit, his arm around the elegant pregnant woman, was Obi. Her Obi, the boy from Umueze, the boy she'd sacrificed everything for. Her heart started pounding so hard she thought it might burst out of her chest. Joy, relief, disbelief, excitement all flooded through her at once. He'd made it. He'd really made it. Look at him, so successful, so different, but still Obi, still her friend. And now she was here, in his house. It was like God had finally answered her prayers, had finally brought them back together. "Obi?" The name escaped her lips before she could stop it. Both Obi and the pregnant woman turned to look at her. The woman's face showed confusion and annoyance. But Obi's face showed something that made Adaeze's hands falter. Fear. Pure, undiluted fear. "Obi, it's me," Adaeze said, stepping forward, forgetting about the mop, forgetting about her place. "It's Adaeze from Umueze. I can't believe it's you. I've been looking for you for so long." The pregnant woman, Chidera, looked at Obi with raised eyebrows. "Darling, do you know this maid?" The silence that stretched between them felt like an eternity. Adaeze watched Obi's face, watched him struggle with something internal, watched the moment he made his choice. "No," he said, his voice cold and distant. "I've never seen her before." The words hit Adaeze like a physical blow. She stumbled backward, confusion clouding her face. "What? Obi, what are you saying? It's me, Ada, from the village. We grew up together. I helped you come to Lagos. Don't you remember?" Chidera's face hardened. She stepped forward, her hand protectively on her swollen belly. "Listen here, whoever you are. I don't know what game you're playing, but my husband has never been to any village. He's from a respectable family in Lagos. He attended the best schools. Now get back to your work before I have you fired." The days that followed were pure torture for Adaeze. She moved through the mansion like a ghost, cleaning, cooking, washing, all while watching Obi pretend she didn't exist. He would walk past her in the hallways without a glance, eat the food she prepared without acknowledgement, live his luxurious life as if the girl who'd given up everything for him was just another invisible servant. The pain of it was worse than anything she'd ever experienced, worse than losing her mother, worse than selling the land, worse than 7 years of back-breaking labor. But what crushed her spirit completely was Chidera. That woman had eyes like a hawk and a jealousy that poisoned everything. She must have sensed something in that first encounter, some history she couldn't quite name but refused to ignore. From that day forward, Chidera made Adaeze's life a living hell. "You, village girl," Chidera would call out, never using Adaeze's name. "This floor is dirty. Clean it again and again and again until I say it's acceptable." Adaeze would scrub until her knees bled through her wrapper, until her hands cramped, until tears mixed with the soapy water. And Chidera would inspect it, run her manicured finger along the marble, and declare it still dirty. The other servants watched with pity, but said nothing. Everyone knew you didn't cross Madame Chidera. One evening, Adaeze was serving dinner. The dining room was magnificent, with crystal chandeliers and a table that could seat 20 people. Obi and Chidera sat at one end, eating jollof rice and grilled chicken that Adaeze had prepared. She moved around the table silently, refilling their wine glasses, clearing plates, trying to be invisible. "This rice is too salty," Chidera announced, pushing her plate away with disgust. "Who cooked this rubbish?" "I did, ma," Adaeze said quietly, her eyes downcast. "Of course you did," Chidera said, her voice dripping with contempt. "Village people don't know how to cook proper food. You people just throw things in a pot and call it cooking. Obi, darling, we need to replace this one. She's completely useless." Obi said nothing. He just continued eating, his jaw tight, his eyes fixed on his plate. That silence hurt more than any words could. "Please, ma," Adaeze found herself saying, her voice breaking. "I can cook it again. I can do better. Please don't send me away." Where would she go? Back to Umueze with nothing. She had no land, no home, no money. This job, as terrible as it was all she had. Chidera smiled, a cold, cruel smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, you want to stay? Then get on your knees and beg me properly." The room went silent. Even the other servant who was helping serve, a young girl named Blessing, gasped softly. Adaeze looked at Obi, desperately hoping he would say something, do something, show even a flicker of the boy who once held her hand at her mother's funeral. But he kept eating, kept pretending nothing was happening. Slowly, Adaeze lowered herself to her knees on the cold marble. "Please, ma, I'm begging you, give me another chance." Chidera laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "That's better. Now maybe you'll learn your place in this house. Get up and cook something edible this time." That night, lying on the thin mat in the servants' quarters, Adaeze stared at the ceiling and felt something inside her begin to change. The hope that had sustained her through 7 years of suffering was dying, replaced by something harder, something colder. She'd been a fool, a stupid, naive fool who'd believed in childhood promises and mango tree dreams. But the worst was still to come. 2 weeks later, Chidera's diamond necklace was missing. It was an expensive piece, a gift from Obi, worth more money than Adaeze would see in 10 lifetimes. Chidera tore through the house like a hurricane, screaming, throwing things, demanding answers. All the servants were questioned, their rooms searched. When they got to Adaeze's space, Chidera herself conducted the search, throwing aside the thin mat, scattering Adaeze's few belongings. And there, tucked in the corner, was the necklace. "I knew it!" Chidera shrieked, holding up the diamonds like evidence of murder. "Obi, Obi, come here now!" "I didn't take it." Adaeze's voice was desperate, panicked. "I swear, I've never seen that necklace before. Someone put it there. I would never steal."
Obi appeared in the doorway of the servants' quarters, his face carefully blank. Chidera rushed to him, the necklace in one hand, her other hand protectively on her pregnant belly. "Look what I found in her room! This girl is a common thief! I want her arrested! I want her thrown in jail!" "Please, Obi," Adaeze begged, forgetting to call him Oga, forgetting everything except the desperate need to make him see reason. "You know me. You know I would never steal. Tell her who I really am. Tell her about Umueze." Something flickered in Obi's eyes then. Not sympathy, not recognition, but fear and anger mixed together into something ugly. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said slowly, dangerously, "but I think I understand now. You've been obsessed with me since you started working here. You follow me around, you stare at me, you make up these crazy stories about us knowing each other, and now you steal my wife's jewelry? You're not just a thief, you're mentally unstable." The accusation hit Adaeze like a bucket of ice water. "What? No! Obi, please, you can't—" "My name is Mr. Obiora to you," he said, his voice rising, "and I've had enough of this nonsense. Chidera, call the police. This woman has been harassing me, making unwanted advances, and now stealing from us. I want her prosecuted to the full extent of the law." Chidera's smile was victorious, evil. She pulled out her phone, but before she could dial, Auntie Patience stepped forward. The older woman had been watching everything silently, her face troubled. "Madame, sir, please," Auntie Patience said carefully. "Maybe we don't need to involve the police. The necklace has been found. Perhaps we can just send her away. Police wahala is too much trouble." Chidera turned on her furiously. "Are you defending this thief? Maybe you're in on it too. Maybe I should fire all of you." "No, ma, I just mean, get out," Chidera screamed at Adaeze. "Get your things and get out of my house right now. If I see your face anywhere near this property again, I will have you arrested and thrown in a cell to rot. Village prostitute, coming here to seduce my husband and steal my jewelry." Adaeze stood there, shaking, her whole body trembling with rage and pain and disbelief. She looked at Obi one last time, really looked at him, and saw absolutely nothing behind his eyes. No guilt, no remorse, no recognition. He'd erased her completely, wiped her out of his history like she'd never existed. "I gave you everything," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "My mother's land, my inheritance, my future. I starved so you could eat. I sacrificed so you could succeed. And this is how you repay me?" "Security," Obi called out, ignoring her words completely. "Escort this woman off the property. Make sure she never comes back." The security man, the same pot-bellied one from the gate, grabbed Adaeze's arm roughly. She didn't resist. What was the point? They dragged her through the mansion, past the other servants who looked away in shame and fear, through the golden gate she'd stood at weeks ago with such desperate hope. They threw her small bag at her feet and slammed the gate shut. Adaeze stood on the street in her worn wrapper, her few belongings scattered around her, cars passing by without stopping, people walking by without seeing her. She was nobody again, less than nobody, a village girl who'd been foolish enough to dream, to believe, to sacrifice for someone who didn't deserve it. She bent down and gathered her things slowly, methodically. Her hands had stopped shaking, her tears had dried up. Something was crystallizing inside her chest, something cold and hard and patient. She thought about the necklace planted in her room, about Chidera's cruel smile, about Obi's blank eyes. They thought they'd won. They thought they'd destroyed her completely. But they made a mistake. They assumed that because she was poor, because she was from a village, because she'd been humiliated and broken, that she had no power. They'd forgotten that the most dangerous person in the world is someone who has nothing left to lose. Adaeze picked up her bag and started walking. She didn't know where she was going yet, didn't have a plan formed. But as she walked through the streets of Lagos, as the sun set behind the tall buildings, painting the sky in shades of orange and red like the dust of Umueze, she made herself a new promise. Not the sweet, innocent promises of children under mango trees. This promise was darker, forged in betrayal and watered with bitter tears. Obi taught her a valuable lesson. Kindness was weakness, sacrifice was stupidity, and trust was a luxury only fools could afford. He'd taken everything from her, destroyed her completely, and expected her to disappear quietly into the shadows of Lagos, like all the other forgotten village girls. But Adaeze wasn't going to disappear. She was going to rise. She was going to become something he never expected. And when she was ready, when she had the power and the means, she would make sure Obi remembered exactly who Adaeze from Umueze was. She would make him regret every lie, every denial, every moment he pretended she didn't exist. Revenge doesn't always announce itself with screams and fire. Sometimes it moves quietly, patiently, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sometimes the people we sacrifice everything for become the very ones who destroy us. Adaeze learned the hardest lesson life can teach, that not everyone deserves your kindness, and that blind trust can be more dangerous than hatred. But here's what you need to understand. Being broken doesn't mean being finished. When life knocks you down to nothing, when betrayal strips away everything you believed in, you have a choice. You can stay down, or you can rise as something stronger, wiser, and more powerful than before. Do you think Adaeze will forgive Obi, or make him pay for every tear she cried? Will Chidera discover the truth about her husband's village past? And what about that planted necklace? Who really put it there? This story is far from over, and what happens in part 2 will leave you absolutely speechless. Subscribe to Hotspot Tales right now so you don't miss part 2. Drop a comment below. Team Adaeze or Team Obi? Should she forgive and move on, or should she plan the perfect revenge? Hit that like button if this story touched your heart, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Part 2 drops soon, and trust me, everything changes. The betrayal you've seen is nothing compared to what's coming.